Parents of pro athletes are wild. The NBA playoffs are fully underway, and we have a couple of series that have already wrapped up in 5 games. One of the most intriguing series to do so is the Bucks and Pacers, mostly because of a confrontation that happened at the end of Game 5 after the series was over. It was a thrilling game. Giannis was dominant throughout, and the Bucks led most of the time, but eventually did get to overtime on a last-second Haliburton bucket. He had a dunk with about 10 seconds left that forced it into overtime, and it just became more chaotic from there.
Truly, the Bucks should not have lost this game. They were up 7 with under a minute left in OT, and a bunch of turnovers, a bunch of game-winning plays from everybody on the Pacers squad. Drew Nembhard specifically coming down, making a 3, getting another steal, giving them extra chances, and it eventually led to Haliburton getting a switch out of a timeout against Giannis and kind of cooked him. Former Defensive Player of the Year got cooked by Haliburton towards the end of that game for the game winner. And obviously, that place, from experience, does get wild. The energy's there. I didn't expect it to go the way that it was going to go. First of all, Tyrese Haliburton made everybody know not to overrate him ever again. After the game, tweeted, "Overrate this," which I think went along pretty well, especially since I'm pretty sure it's close to a similar Kobe comment or tweet in the past. Rest in peace, but a long time ago. So he's pretty good at like the clever things. Now his dad, not so much. And I think that's the biggest story of the night, which is kind of sad. At the end of the game, I understand his enthusiasm with the Pacers winning and cheering for his kid. I get it. As a parent, I understand that's probably one of the most exciting things to experience, front row seats. But you don't need to bring like the Haliburton towel or t-shirt or whatever it was, stand probably no more than 5 feet from Giannis and wave it in his face. You don't need to do all the extra stuff. I don't know what words were said in between there. I just know it was some kind of cursing according to Giannis's word. Either way, you're still a fan. I'm okay with you being on the court because you're a fan, but like go celebrate with your kid then, because a parent has access to the court knowing that his kid, Tyrese Haliburton, is there and playing. The security guys know who he is, obviously, by now. Like, that's why they allowed it to happen. But you don't expect the unnecessary context of everything to happen. Stay in your seat, wait for Tyrese to come to you, or if you're going to go out, go to him, not Giannis. I think that's a bunch of BS.
Yeah, I hope you weren't comparing Tyrese Haliburton to Kobe earlier, but what I will say is that Haliburton's dad wasn't entirely in the wrong. Giannis did come out and say afterwards that he was like swearing and yelling at him and stuff, which is obviously over the line. But I think another interesting part of this is that like Giannis isn't always the nicest character either. Like we've seen Giannis like push over ladders on like stadium workers and even, we showed it in a couple of clips ago. Like there's even a moment near the end of the game where Giannis is kind of like mean mugging that side of the court after a shot that he had made, like an and-one. And he's kind of like, giving looks to that whole side. So there's probably talk going on the entire game, if I had to guess. There's probably words exchanged throughout the entire thing. But, and then also on the side of like rushing the court, a lot of people rush the court, it seemed like. Like when you look back at the video, there's a lot of people on the court. So if his dad wants to go out there, fine. But again, why are you going up to Giannis and starting beef? Why are you not going over to your kid and just celebrating the moment? I will say too, and this will be kind of the last comment I'll make, and then we can talk about some of the other wild parent kinds of things we've seen lately. But it struck me as odd that there was this kind of a celebration for a first round series as well. Like this was the first round of the Eastern Conference. It was beating a Bucks team that hasn't made it past the Eastern Conference semis in 3 years. Really has had no playoff success since 2021. Dame barely played a game before getting injured again. And this is how you celebrate? Like it's like you gotta act like you've been there before a little bit. You can't come out doing things like this. And to his credit, Tyrese's response afterwards, where he apologized on behalf of his dad and his dad apologized, I think those are all the right things to do. That to me shows a little bit more of like you've been here before. but doing that after a first round series, even with the beef between those two teams and the way that exists, I don't think that's a good look at all.
I understand, because the T-Wolves team a couple years ago when Pat Bev was up on the table after they won a play-in game and stuff, I thought that was pretty unnecessary. But I understand the emotions of the Pacers versus the Bucks because they are two teams that have hated each other and countless technical fouls and like people butting heads over the last 3 years since the Bucks haven't been successful, which is funny enough because I think the Pacers are one of those teams that are blocking the Bucks. So that tells you about the direction of the Bucks and where they might be headed, aka a rebuild. Giannis might get up out of there. Love to see him in a Knicks uniform or a Spurs uniform, and I'll leave that hanging at that. But I think you need to account for the emotions of the two teams. If it were any other team that the Pacers beat, I don't think the Pacers or Haliburton would be up on a table and his dad would come out. Like, I don't think that would be the case. They made the Eastern Conference Finals last year, and we didn't see that from them in the first two series. Now, since it's the Bucks, I think it means more to them because of the intense emotions. And that's my final thoughts on that initial series and all the like the extra BS that happened. But I want to know, do you think his father should get suspended or have any kind of punishment by the league? Because I knew that was a thing coming out. Me personally, I think he should be suspended from NBA games up until the NBA Finals. I wouldn't want him to miss his kid's NBA Finals appearance if they get to that point, but I think him missing the remainder of the extra playoff games would be okay, just to kind of prove a point.
Wow.
People think he should be like suspended for life, all this good stuff. So
wow. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say any of those things. Like, I would even say suspending him up until the finals is probably a little harsh for me. Like maybe suspend him for the next series of home games if you're the Pacers. But that seems really harsh to me to do. Like, I mean, a lifetime ban is incredibly harsh. I don't think that's needed. Again, like you're just saying, there's the extra emotion that kind of comes from all of this. It would be really hard for me to understand why a lifetime ban is necessary. The harshest that I would go is something like you're talking about. And if they did that, I think they'd go for like the full playoffs, not like up until the NBA Finals. They'd probably just say like, rest of this year, you're done. You can come back next year. But even that would be a little harsh for me. Hopefully it doesn't end up like that.
My thing is, I still think you need to treat him like a fan in some kind of sense. And that's why I think there needs to be some kind of punishment, but I don't know what that is. Even if it's Tyrese getting a fine for his dad, I think that would be okay too.
Well, because you think like, oh, like maybe his dad gets the fine, but that doesn't make a lot of sense because who knows where his dad's at. But Tyrese could definitely pay the fine, obviously, with his contracts. Definitely really interesting. Parents can sometimes put you in difficult situations. Sometimes there's baggage with parents that make it difficult for you to do your job, or maybe there's just certain stigmas around who you are because everybody knows your dad. And if you can't tell, I'm not talking about just Tyrese Haliburton. I'm also talking about Shedeur Sanders, who coming into the 2025 NFL draft, a lot of people believe was going to be a top 5 pick. As we got closer, maybe it was a slide down to the Saints at 9. Maybe it was a slide down to the Steelers at 21. Holy cow, maybe a top 5 quarterback slips to the very end of the first round. Maybe teams trade up at the end of the first round if he slips to the late 20s. He ended up going 144th overall, which was a surprise to everyone. And he ended up going to the Browns, which was like one of the 3 teams that they said they did not want to see Shedeur play for. This feels like a giant FU to the Sanders family from the league. Like collectively as league offices saying like, you shouldn't say who you do and don't want to play for. You should come do the combine. You should come do your workout. You should get the cameras out of your face. Like this feels like it's the league really sending a message about a lot of this NIL stuff, everything going on, and then obviously the baggage with Deion Sanders being your father. What are your thoughts on Shedeur Sanders' draft slide? Was it warranted? How much does that have to do with his talent? Do you think teams didn't want to deal with Deion? Where do you land on all of the spectrum of all of these thoughts?
I think it was warranted. That's where I'll start. I thought he was going to get drafted early second round by the Browns, not where he got drafted by the Browns in the 5th round. My thought right now, because I like to make fun of the Browns in general, but they have 5 quarterbacks in that room. That's also a heat check to Shedeur Sanders in how much competition there's going to be in that room. You're not just the number 3 guy. You're not just the number 4 guy. You're the number 5 guy. Because Dylan Gabriel got drafted ahead of you as well.
Yep.
They have Watson. They have Flacco. They traded for Pickett.
Yep.
So you need to compete. You don't just get a spot. So I think that's warranted for sure. A place with competition, I think, will do him well. Knowing and hearing some things through the grapevine, I don't think his work ethic is as good as people want. So I don't think it's a Deion issue. I think it's a stuck-up, I'm here, I'm him kind of attitude that got him in trouble. And I really don't think the league gave a damn who he was and what he thought of himself, which is why I think that's warranted. I don't think it comes from Deion. I think it comes from his actual attitude himself.
Yeah, this is interesting. Because Deion did make comments that he was going to be a top 5 pick. On Twitter and everything too. Middle of the Colorado season, was talking back to people on Twitter. Where's your son at? My son's going to be a top 5 pick. All this stuff. So I get what you're saying partially, but I think it makes sense that the Browns were the ones that drafted him because no team wants to take on the attitude unless they can say, you're number 5 right now, get it together or we don't need you. Like the Browns are in a perfect spot when, granted, we'll see how they handle it because it's the Browns, but like to put him 5th on your quarterback depth chart and look at him and say, hey, listen, like these are all established guys besides the guy we drafted ahead of you. Like you're gonna have to really prove that it's worth our time to even keep you on this roster. Like, what if they practice squatted for the first year? Could you imagine?
Yeah, it's definitely possible too with how busy that room is. But I think it might be a little sneaky move by the Browns too because they haven't had a lot of quarterback success since Baker Mayfield got them to the playoffs for 1 year. So I think it might just light a fire under his ass just to get him going and actually want to work hard and be accomplished in the NFL, not just get to the NFL. And I'm not going to sit here and act like Deion didn't make comments because I agree with you. He still probably should have stayed out of it, just like LeBron James probably should have stayed out of his kid's way, but also got Bronny drafted. And that's a whole different conversation that you, me, and a bunch of our other friends got into hours of debating before. However, that has not impacted other pro athletes. One prime example is Lonzo Ball with LeVar. Lonzo was still a top 3 pick. I don't think that has any impact. I don't think people really care about the outside drama and who your parents are. I think it's about work ethic, and I still think it's his attitude. Deion made comments that maybe people didn't like because he's going to forever do that. But I don't think it's his fault. I think it's Shedeur's fault in the way he acted.
It'll be really interesting to see how Shedeur's career unfolds. Because it's either going to be one of those stories of like, everybody was way overthinking this. Dude's Deion Sanders kid, like athletic, talented, everything you need. Shouldn't have overthought this. Or it's going to be, like stereotypical story of the offspring was not quite up to snuff with the original all-time caliber player, right? So we'll see how it unfolds. The Browns will be in for a treat.
I agree with you, and I think it's funny. I mentioned something the other day. I think Travis Hunter is more like Deion Sanders than Deion Sanders' kids are like him.
100%. I think that's a good way to end the episode, actually. We appreciate everyone watching and listening. Remember to like and subscribe. Let us know down in the comments how you think pro athletes' parents are affecting them, if they're helping their careers by gaining them more attention or potentially getting them drafted in a case like Bronny and LeBron, or if they're hindering them and you think Deion potentially had something to do with Shedeur Sanders' fall, or if you think Haliburton is going to go into next series a little bit more distracted than all of the talk around his dad now and his family. So again, appreciate everyone watching and listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.